I oftentimes have to remind myself that we live in a world where words sometimes have way too many meanings and words don't even have proper meanings at all. Welcome everyone, my name is Personality, bringing you all the latest news in the wider fighting game community, whether it's from a casual or competitive perspective. Now, yesterday's video we spoke about Granblue Fantasy versus Rising, making certain changes to the inputs of certain mechanics present within the game. Now, today, we've actually got a response from the creative director of Granblue Versus, who has actually spoke about this, controversy. I hate to really just toss around the word like that, but definitely there's something that is stirring up a lot of mixed opinions within the fan base. So the other day we announced that skills performed using both simple and technical inputs would share the exact same properties in Rising. Reactions came pouring in, and I've been doing my best to read as much of the feedback as possible. From the comments we received, the most common were requests to retain some form of disadvantage for simple inputs and questions regarding why we'd leave the option for technical inputs. I can see where they're coming from, and I'd like to take this opportunity to shine some light on how this decision was made. So in that post, he further goes on to speak about the fact that, look, Granblue Fantasy Versus is the game to do this. It's the perfect game. It's changing the whole direction of what this IP was originally. It's just an RPG gacha. Now it's changing into this game that may eventually be recognized as up there in terms of competitive play in the FGC. But what he further goes on to say is that, look, they're trying to make a game where it is okay for new players to approach it. They don't have to learn the traditional ways or methods of playing fighting games. They don't have to have had all this experience for a plethora of years in order to participate in the global phenomenon, which is the growth of fighting games and by extension, the growth of the fighting game community. Now, yesterday there was a comment made on the channel, and I'll just put that up. And I must say that I agree with this post. Certainly in most regards. I don't think it's that hard to learn these technical inputs. Neither do I think it is that difficult for you to just recognize that fighting games take a lot of time. You're not going to be beating top players by putting 60 hours in this game when they have hours that we don't even want to begin calculating yet. And then you see this difference. You see this difference in skill. You see this difference in strength. And I think that it really turns off new players when they can't even do the simple specials. But it is very clear. In fact, that's the problem that I have sometimes with most fighting game tutorial. Combos and special inputs do not win matches. Matches are won by micro decisions made throughout the fight. It's not because you put down this killer combo. How can you put down a killer combo, right? But you don't even know how to properly whiff punish. You don't even recognize frame data. You don't know any aspects that make up the technicality of fighting games. But then you just want to be great as somebody who put in all those hours. However, we must recognize on that same spectrum of the argument, there is somebody who will never want to study these elements. They don't want to go through learning frame data. They don't care about the huge fighting game terminology. They don't want to know what meaty is. They don't want to know what DP even means. They don't care about these elements. And I think now, more than ever, these developers are recognizing that and taking this moment or this opportunity to make their games appeal to that casual fan base or people who don't necessarily want to have to go through this huge learning curve in order to just jump on ranked, have a good time, and log off. They're still getting roasted for this. I mean, you're seeing comments that say equal footing. I'm tired of hearing that such a bad excuse. Some people say, I don't agree with this change. Newcomer or not, there should be a reward for technical inputs, and I totally agree. I think Granblue Versus had it correct when there were more penalties for the simple inputs in comparison to the technical inputs. In fact, somebody else went on to say, is anybody else sick of the corpo Reddit grade buzzwords or phrases? Perfect game to dare, diminish the hurdle, we made it possible, shine some light, and hear your feedback. So people are not buying this. It almost sounds as if the creative director went into a panic mode. He got this directly from the marketing department in order to just shove it out there in order to save themselves, because the beta is actually happening today. But this is not enough based on the hardcore fighting game players. They're communicating this to the team that this is not enough, and the skill barrier that is constantly berated for existing must be kept. It is not that they're trying to possibly gatekeep fighting games, but it is just that this is the culture that has been developed for all this time, and they would like that culture to remain. Now, speaking of controversies in terms of that report, you come back now to Street Fighter 6, which has been controversial since day one. But now it's using the effect of scrub. Everybody's passing around the word scrubby. And like I said in the beginning, most words in today's world don't really reflect any true meaning, and everybody has their own interpretation of what that word may mean. But we're actually getting, and this, I still take it with a grain of salt, because of course there is a language barrier that exists, but we're actually getting some Japanese top players such as Daigo himself really commenting and saying that yes, Street Fighter 6 is scrubby. So what? But my interpretation of scrubby would mean that this is somebody who has a bad approach to the game anyway. They're going to complain, they're not going to try to learn the basics. It's basically the person who would be like, you know what, I like this sport, but I don't want to learn layups. I don't want to practice my shot. I don't want to learn how to dribble. I just want to play basketball. And you know what? We should just change the ball, because the ball is not accompanying how I should play. And anybody who beats me is not better than me, but they're somehow capable of abusing the mechanics that exist. So for me, that's how scrub comes about. It's somebody who is already defeated mentally before they even pick up this game, or actually any activity on a whole. But what is going on is that people are now using this narrative. So they're glad Daigo jumped on this, Daigo said this, so now I can justify my tweets, I can justify my posts, I can justify that Street Fighter 6 is just not good. And I think it is way too early for us to determine that. I think in Street Fighter 6 there's way more emphasis on offense. I went back and I played some matches in Street Fighter 5, and I think people are patient. Street Fighter 6 is very rewarding sometimes to be aggressive, because you could just drive rush in and then legit delete 60% of somebody's HP. But it's not to say that drive rush isn't punishable, but it's way too early for us to really understand the complete workings of Street Fighter 6 before I think we can even associate this title with it. Are there scrubby people? Yes. Does the game really complement scrubby people? Not so much based on my definition of scrubby. Because if you're already defeated, Street Fighter doesn't necessarily give you all the tools to constantly win. Okay, drive rush, react. I mean, it's similar. It's easier said than done, rather than just saying, dude, just get better. There are elements of the game that could be changed. Maybe the aggression is way too high. Perhaps defensive strategies are not as rewarding as it may have been in previous entries or even comparatively similar games. However, using Daigo saying scrub, which could possibly be interpreted different in the Japanese language, as a basis to say that, look, this game has been officially declared scrubby by the top players, I don't think it's a it's a valid argument, especially for the lifespan and where Street Fighter 6 is at. But guys, that is all we've got to discuss today. It really seems, and I mean, it's a bad perception, and I don't think that's the perception that people from the inner parts of the community want, to be the message. But it really seems that the fighting game community will not allow these sorts of changes to happen without them being very vocal and upset. And some people might be even distraught about making the game a bit more accessible. I am on the side that accessibility is great, but if it comes at the expense of those who would have committed to this game and it's very simple mechanics that can be bypassed with just commitment, then I don't think we should be throwing these elements out there to make it noob friendly, or as everyone's saying, scrub friendly. But like I said, that's all we got to talk about, and I'll see you in the next video. But until then, stay gaming.